Okay, hi everyone. Today we're going to discuss about the different types of business entity structures. Okay, so when anyone wants to start a business, you have to decide on the business entity structure that you are going to use to run your business. And then you have to register this business entity structure with the Accounting and Corporate Regulatory Authority of Singapore, which is ACRA for short. And usually when people start a business, they will look for ACRA filing agent like our firm to help them in the registration and setting up of the structure. Okay, so today we're going to take a look at the types of business entity structures, and in this presentation we're going to touch on the first three. Because the last two, right, I'll touch on it in a separate presentation because there are more features in the last two business entity structures. So there are 5 entity structures that you can use in running your business, and they are governed by various acts. Okay, so these are the so-called laws that you have to follow when you set up these structures. And if you set up a business structure, you have to understand the act. You cannot say that I set up this structure and then I don't know, I'm not familiar with the act. And then when you're in breach of the act, there are certain penalties which you have to face. Okay, so for sole proprietorship, or like sole proprietors, they are governed by the Business Names Registration Act. If you form a partnership, the partnership is also governed by the same act. If you form a limited partnership, it's governed by the Limited Partnership Act. The Limited Liability Partnership is governed by the Limited Liability Partnerships Act. And a company is governed by the Companies Act. Okay, so let's take a look at a sole proprietorship. Okay, this sole proprietorship is something like some people, they register a sole proprietor because they want to start a hawker stall, and maybe it's a one-man show, so this person register a sole proprietor. Okay, it's the most convenient thing to set up, and this is one of the main reasons why people set up a sole proprietorship. Okay, so the functions of a sole proprietorship is that this is actually a business owned by one person. It's not a separate legal entity, which means that the sole proprietorship does not form a separate legal entity like a company. So this sole proprietorship has unlimited liability. The owner of this sole proprietorship has unlimited liability. That means that if somebody sues this sole proprietorship, the individual or the owner who owns this sole proprietorship, he is liable for all the debts and all the losses of the business. This is one of the main reasons why our firm tries to tell people that if your business may run into large contracts, then maybe this may not be the correct business entity structure that you may want to form to run your business. Okay, so let's take a look at who can register the sole proprietorship. A sole proprietor has to be 18 years and above. He or she has to be a Singapore citizen, a Singapore permanent resident, or entre pass holder. So if the sole proprietor or the owner of the sole proprietorship is not a Singapore resident, which means that he or she does not stay in Singapore, he must appoint an authorized representative who is a Singapore resident. When I mention Singapore resident, means staying in Singapore. Okay, so a Singaporean can be based in Australia, and then that person may be a Singapore citizen but not a Singapore resident. Okay, and to register a sole proprietorship, you must not have outstanding MediSave liabilities. So you must clear all your MediSave liabilities with CPF board, and undischarged bankrupts generally cannot open sole proprietorships, but they need the approval of the court or the official assignee, then they can open a sole proprietorship. So why do people open sole proprietorships? Well, it's low cost and easy to set up. When I talk about low cost and easy to set up, this is in comparison to setting up a company. The renewal is either 1 or 3 years. So the profits are taxed at the owner's personal income tax rates. So one of the things that some people may find attractive is that they they don't pay corporate tax. They pay a personal income tax, which is generally lower if you're in the lower tax brackets. Okay, so this sole proprietorship exists as long as the owner is alive and intends to continue the business. The main issue for sole proprietorship that I personally can think of is that there's no continuity. It cannot be passed on, sold, or attract investors. So if let's say this hawker says that I wish to open more and more stores, I want to expand into a shopping center, I want to bring um, my noodle store into shopping centers, and I don't have enough money, so I want to attract investors. But he cannot sell shares in a sole proprietorship. The sole proprietorship is just a registration of a business. Okay, so he cannot sell shares and say, oh, you invest money in my sole proprietorship, I give you shares in the sole proprietorship. It doesn't work that way. Sole proprietorship has no shares. The owner is solely that individual itself. And if the individual were to pass on, which means that he dies or he gives up the business, the sole proprietorship will cease to exist. Okay, so the next business entity structure that we will discuss is partnership. Okay, so partnership is, to generalize, is actually sole proprietorship, but more than one person. So if two or more people come together and say, I want to start a business, so an example of this will be maybe two friends coming together saying that they want to start a clothing business and they would like to set up shop in, let's say, Far East Plaza, and then they say that, oh, I want to start a clothing shop and sell maybe or maybe in Bugis Street. So they want to import clothes from maybe China and then sell it in one of these shops. So these two people or two or three or four people can come together and say, okay, let's just start a partnership. And generally, right, the partnership is between 2 and 20 partners. So if you have more than 20, you have to incorporate a company under the Companies Act. You need to take note that, like a sole proprietorship, the partnership is not a separate legal entity, which means that the partners that come together, they have unlimited liability as well. If the partnership, if the firm is sued, then the partners have to bear responsibility to the debts and the losses of the firm. And one thing is that the partners are also personally liable for debts and losses of their other partners. So if let's say there are two partners and one of them makes a mistake which results in the firm being sued, the other partner cannot say, oh, I don't know about this and therefore I am not liable to pay the losses. You can't do that because you are together in the same firm. If the firm gets sued, one person cannot pay, the other person have to take on the debt as well. Okay, so who can register a partnership? The same thing, you must be 18 years and above, Singapore citizen, Singapore permanent resident, or entre-pass holder. Same thing, if the owners are not Singapore residents, they must appoint an authorized representative who is a Singapore resident. All the owners cannot have outstanding MediSave liabilities, and the same thing for undischarged bankrupts. Okay, so why do people set up partnerships? The same reason as why people set up sole proprietorships. They are low cost and easy to set up. Renewal is also 1 or 3 years. Profits are again taxed at the partner's personal income tax rates. And this partnership exists subject to partnership agreement. That means, let's say 2 or 3 people or 4 people come together, they will come together in a partnership agreement. And so long as the partnership agreement holds, this partnership will continue. But the partnership is the same thing. So there's no continuity. It cannot be passed on, sold, or attract investors. So like my example about 2 people coming together to set up a shop selling clothing, they cannot say that, oh, now our business is doing very well. We wish to open multiple shops in shopping centers. Therefore, we need investors. So even if somebody comes and says, I want to invest like $1 million in your clothing operation, they can't do that because the business entity structure is a partnership. You cannot sell shares because the partnership has no shares. Okay, if you want to sell shares in or you want to attract investors, then the partnership is not the way to go for investors to put in money into the business. Okay, next is a limited partnership. So this type of partnership is slightly different from a normal partnership. This partnership consists of 2 or more people. There must be at least 1 general partner and 1 limited partner. The general partner's liability is unlimited. That means that if the limited partnership goes into debt, this general partner has unlimited liability. He can be sued and his personal assets can be seized by the creditors if, let's say, the firm is successfully sued by the creditors. And then there's another limited partner. So because of the limited partnership, there has to be at least two people, 2 partners. One is a general partner with unlimited liability, and the limited partner has limited liability. So the limited partner, right, is only liable up to the amount of his agreed contribution. So from the start, if the limited partner and the general partner come together and say, okay, let's start the business, but the limited partner say that I will be the limited partner and my limited liability, right, is up to maybe $20,000 because that's all I wish to put into the business. So if the firm gets sued, the general partner's liability will be absolute. That means that unlimited, he can be sued of all his assets, but the limited partner, right, can only be sued up to 20,000 because that was what was agreed in the first place for his contribution to this partnership. Okay, and yeah, so they can sue or be sued in the firm's name, and they cannot own property in the firm's name. Okay, so this is one of the thing about limited partnership. So who can register a limited partnership? The same thing, 18 years and above, Singapore citizen, Singapore permanent residents, Entree Pass holders. And if all general partners are not Singapore residents, they must appoint an authorized representative who is a Singapore resident. So at least one of the general partners has to be based in Singapore. Okay, so no outstanding MediSave liabilities, same thing. And undischarged bankrupts cannot manage the business without approval from the court or the official assignee. Okay, so why do people set up limited partnership? The same thing. The limited partnership is low cost and easy to set up. The renewal is 1 or 3 years, and the profits are taxed at partners' personal income tax rates if this individual. So in this limited partnership, there can be a corporation as well. So it can be, let's say, like 3 general partners, maybe like Mr. A, Mr. B, and Mr. C. And then after that, there can be a company that steps in. So, and company X. So the limited partnership can be 4 entities, 3 individuals, and 1 company. Okay, so if one of the partners is a corporation, then you have to pay the corporate tax rates. And the same thing like a partnership, this limited partnership exists subject to the partnership agreement. So long as the partnership agreement holds, this limited partnership will continue as a going concern. And if there's no limited partner, the limited partnership registration will be suspended. And the general partners, right, will be deemed registered under the Business Names Registration Act, which means that if there isn't a partner who is limited in liability, then this limited partnership will cease to exist or be suspended first, and then all these general partners will be deemed to be in a partnership, which means the previous business entity structure. Okay, so same thing, same issue with like sole proprietorship and partnership. The limited partnership has no continuity. You cannot be passed on, sold, or attract investors. You can't go to investors and say, oh, I wish to expand, I'm looking for investments, and then I'm selling equity, so you can't do that. Okay, and these are the this is actually the main reason why we as a firm try to advise our clients that if you're really serious about business expansion in the long run, then opening a sole proprietorship, a partnership or limited partnership, right, may not be the correct business entity structure to set up. Okay, so I will be touching on limited liability partnership, which is another form of business entity structure, as well as companies in a later presentation. And if anybody is keen to know more about our services, you can go to our website, singaporesecretaryservices.com, and you can contact Corinne at this contact number, and that's her email address, or you can contact myself, that's my business number and my email address as well. Okay, so that's all for today.